All right, let's dive into one of the most critical and honestly fascinating questions in all of criminal law. When exactly does a plan to commit a crime become the crime itself? Where is that blurry line?
Okay, so picture this. It all starts in your mind, right? An idea pops up. A goal is set.
Then you start to put the pieces together. You get all the tools, everything you need to turn that idea into reality. And just like that, everything is in place. You are ready. You're right on the edge, standing at the precipice of action. So here's the million-dollar question. Have you actually broken the law yet? I mean, at what point do your actions cross over from just thinking and planning into a full-blown criminal attempt? Let's break it all down.
All right, to really understand where that line is, we first have to look at the entire journey. From a legal standpoint, a crime usually unfolds in 4 distinct stages.
So first up, you've got intention. That's just the idea in your head. And you know what? The law can't punish you for just thinking something. Next comes preparation. This is the planning phase, gathering what you need. After that, we hit the attempt. That's the first real step towards the crime. And finally, you have commission, which is when the crime is actually completed. Now that line between stage 2 and stage 3, preparation and attempt, that is everything. And it's exactly what we're focusing on.
So let's start in what the law basically considers the safe zone, the preparation phase. This is your chance to turn back, no questions asked.
And we actually have a really clear definition from the Supreme Court. They say preparation is all about, quote, devising or arranging the means or measures necessary. Basically, it's getting all your ducks in a row, but not actually letting them march yet. I mean, take a look at these examples. Buying a box of matches? You could be planning a barbecue. Buying a gun? Maybe it's for sport. Drawing a map of a house? Could be for a renovation project. The point is, on their own, these acts don't really scream crime, do they? They're totally ambiguous.
And because these acts are so ambiguous, the law gives you an out. It's a legal escape hatch with a fancy Latin name, locus Poenitentiae. It literally means a chance to repent. As long as you're still in that preparation stage, you can ditch the whole plan, walk away, and you're in the clear. No legal consequences. But then, there's that moment you take one more step. You cross over from just planning to actually doing. This is the attempt. And folks, this is the point of no return.
See, an attempt is what lawyers call an inchoate crime, which basically just means it's incomplete. The crazy part is, you don't even have to succeed to be found guilty. The act of trying is a crime in itself, and it's punishable under the law, like under Section 62 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita.
Okay, so if the line is that thin, how in the world does a court decide which side of it you're on? Well, to figure that out, they've developed some really specific tests, and we're going to explore them by digging into some fascinating real-world case files.
So let's get to it. Time to open up the case files and see how these abstract legal ideas play out in the real world.
First up, we have what's called the proximity rule. Now this is all about distance, but maybe not in the way you're thinking. What the court is really asking here is this. How close was your act to the actual completion of the crime? Was it just some remote, early step in the plan, or was it so dangerously close to the finish line that the crime was about to happen any second? Let's see this rule in action. We're going to look at a classic case all the way from 1895, R versus Taylor. So here's what happened. A man buys a box of matches. The court says, okay, that's just preparation. It's a remote act. But then he takes that matchbox, goes to a haystack, kneels down next to it, and strikes the match. Now, he was spotted and he blew it out immediately. But here's the kicker. In the eyes of the law, it was already too late. The verdict? Guilty. But why? Because the act of striking that match, right there, next to the haystack, that was a proximate act. It was dangerously close to the crime of arson. It was the immediate next step. He had officially crossed the line. Okay, so that's one test. But now let's look at this problem from a totally different angle. This is called the equivocality test. So what does that mean? Well, here, the court asks a really interesting question. Does the act itself have any other innocent explanation? Or does it, by itself, speak for itself and point to only one thing, criminal intent? If it does, that's an attempt. There's a landmark case from the Supreme Court of India that illustrates this perfectly. It's Abhayanand Mishra versus the state of Bihar from 1961. So here's the story. Mr. Mishra wanted to sit for a university exam. To get his admission card, he submitted an application with forged documents. The university caught the fraud before he could even pick up the card or take the exam.
So what was his defense? You guessed it, he claimed he was still just preparing.
Yeah, the Supreme Court didn't buy it. They ruled that the moment he put that fraudulent application in the mail, his preparations were over. That act, sending in fake documents, had no other purpose. It couldn't be explained away. It spoke for itself. It was a textbook attempt to cheat.
And this brings us to a really important point, something you've got to understand. To be guilty of an attempt, your action doesn't have to be the very last thing you do. It just has to be a crucial step in the chain of events.
Let's look at one final case that really drives this idea home. Sudhir, Kumar, Mukherjee versus the state of West Bengal.
Okay, so what happened here was an employee cooked up a fraud scheme. He took a fake invoice to his boss and actually got him to sign it. Now, they were caught before that signed invoice was ever submitted for payment, and their defense was, hey, we were still just preparing.
But again, the Supreme Court saw it differently. They found them guilty of attempt. And their reasoning was brilliant. They said that getting the boss's signature, that was the most important and crucial step. Once that ink was on the paper, the fraud was set in motion. It started a chain reaction that was, for all intents and purposes, unstoppable.
So, after walking through all these cases, what's the final verdict? Where exactly is that line between just getting ready and actually trying?
Well, it really boils down to this. Preparation, that's just arranging the means. You're legally in the clear and you still have that chance to change your mind. Your locus Poenitentiae. But an attempt, that's a direct move towards committing the crime. The second you take an action that is both close to the crime and clearly shows your intent, that's it. Legal liability kicks in and that escape hatch is gone, forever.
I love this analogy here. In the blockbuster movie of a crime, preparation is just writing the script. But an attempt, that's the first day of shooting. All the planning, all the scheming, that's just pre-production. But the moment you take that first concrete step that screams crime, you've yelled action. And in the eyes of the law, the cameras are definitely rolling.
So here's a final thought I want to leave you with. Think about your favorite heist movie, your favorite crime thriller. Now that you know exactly where this line is drawn, how many of those characters crossed it and were guilty of a crime long, long before the final act even began? It kind of changes how you watch them, doesn't it?